So real quickly, I know some of our stewardship members had elected to take their books later. Is there anybody who, I know you didn't get one? Jen Spencer, back in the corner. Anybody else didn't get a book? No, we're all good. Okay. So we really appreciate Nick Basinski from the County Agriculture Weights and Measures Department coming in to teach us about some of the pests that are in our area that maybe are a threat to our wildlands. I've found sometimes as a landscape architect, I'm the first one on site trying to do a big picture environmental analysis. So, you know, they've been really developing some great tools to kind of track the pests that are happening and give us pointers on how to deal with some of the wood and the things that are byproducts of development. So now that he's walked back in the door.
I had a few more minutes.
Okay.
All right.
So this is forward, backwards, and then the pointers.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm Nick Basinski with the County Ag Department. My department, we regulate mainly imports and exports of nursery stock from the county, in and out of the County of San Diego. Pests I'm about to be talking about are more wildland pests, but you know, I started my career as a wildlife biologist, and I'm really active in native plant landscaping, just personally, so I've ended up getting involved with a lot of the outreach with these pests. So if you are a land manager doing any kind of mitigation or managing parks or rights-of-way, easements, restoration projects, these pests may be something that you'll end up dealing with. They're not really something applicable to landscaping, normal kind of landscaping you would do, but they could be. The first one, this is a pretty new one, the invasive shot hole borer. The name keeps changing. You may hear polyphagous shot hole borer, Kuroshio shot hole borer. They started calling it exotic for a while, now it's invasive. It's a very tiny little beetle, and it has fungus in its mouth parts, and as it burrows through the wood, the fungus is fusarium, ends up decaying the wood, and the beetle feeds on the fungus. A little symbiotic relationship, and both of those aspects put together are what kills the trees, and it can kill trees very quickly. See these spots up here, the blue triangles are one of the kinds of beetles. They're the polyphagous Kuroshio. They've done some studies on them, and some people say they're different. I don't know. The effect is always the same on the trees, so we just call the complex invasive. But these are some beetles that have been established for several years up north. They showed up in a couple parts of San Diego County, North County, and out here in El Cajon area, and you'll see this is December 2014. There was not too many of them. And then in 2015, they killed all of the willow riparian habitat in the Tijuana River Valley. Millions of trees dead in a matter of months. They really like castor bean, or the plant, so they're eating in this castor, the population's amplifying, the castor can grow back the next year, but the willows can't. So all of this habitat for the willow flycatcher, leaf spells vireo, is all completely wiped out in months. This is what the damage will look like when you look at a piece of wood with the exit holes coming out. And it looks like somebody just stood a few feet away and shot it with a shotgun, just lots of holes. Now there are several native ambrosia beetles that will eat downed wood, and on dead wood you will see similar damage, but those don't attack live wood the way this beetle does. So if it's very recently dead or still alive with this density of very small exit holes, then that's a polyphagous shot hole borer infestation, likely. It really likes sycamore, so this is how tiny the little exit hole will be, and it kind of looks like you can even see the little beetle butt sticking out of that hole, and you see how small it is. If you chip away a piece of the bark, you see the fusarium fungus doing its damage to the tree. Again, it doesn't look like a heck of a lot, but here, if the ground is moist and there's a lot of water being pulled up, you'll see some of the sap leaking out. As the sap dries out, you'll see the sugary, just the dried up exudate. And if the ground is really wet, there will just be water coming out of the holes in the tree. If you hack it off, you can see the damage that in the galleries of the fusarium fungus decaying the wood. And this one's really, really decayed. The whole tree eaten up in that one. This is a new pest. It came here from Asia, and it's trying to find plants that it likes, that it can successfully reproduce in, and it's trying everything and turns out to be pretty successful in everything. So there isn't really a host list because it attacks everything it finds and kills a lot of it. So we've been seeing it, like I said, in a lot of wildland habitat. Sycamore, willow, it's killing a lot of trees, but it can attack small things. It's very likely that this plant can be moved in nursery stock. We don't know how it came here from Asia, but it could have been in pallets to Mexico, and then up here we really don't know how this showed up, but we started noticing it within the past, in San Diego, less than 5 years. Now, to control this, if you are dealing with trees that have an infestation of this, there may be some pesticide controls. I just got an email today about possible pesticide controls, a study that was done. I haven't got to read it yet, but because you can see it goes way into this wood isn't carrying any nutrients, so a systemic pesticide wouldn't work on it. There can be 5 generations of beetle reproducing in the tree before an adult ever emerges. So a contact pesticide on the outside isn't going to have any effect on the population, so pesticides mainly aren't going to work. But if you can trim away the infested portions of the tree or chop the whole tree down, that's basically the best thing you can do, and chip it very small and leave the chippings on site. You can tarp them. The tarping, tarp it for a few months. If you're on the coast, tarping isn't going to get the temperatures up enough to kill any of the pests, but you can let the beetles run their course and die under the tarp. And leave it on site. Again, chipping, chip it very fine, leave the mulch on site, and let the beetle die there. You know the beetle's there already, let it die there, don't transport it. Solarization and composting. Again, solarization isn't really effective on the coast. You need temperatures near 100 degrees to get decent solarization kill, but you can leave it on site. And the number one preventative measure is don't move firewood. That's what we have a really big problem with, how this pest and the next pest I'll be talking about get moved around, is through just taking whole trees off site, and all the bugs fly out from wherever you move it to. Let's see. Okay, gold-spotted oak borer. It has been in San Diego for 10 or 12 years. We know quite a bit about it now, and it spread very quickly the first several years, but because of our firewood education, the spread has been greatly decreased. We went from moving 4 or 5 miles a year to moving only a few hundred yards a year now. This is the adult beetle. It's very small. You'll probably never see an adult beetle. These like coast live oaks mostly, and they like big ones. So if you've been out in Julian, Descanso, Ramona, parts of El Cajon, there's very significant mortality in the large oak trees because of this. But you won't see the adults. These are the life stages of the larvae through the adult. You won't see those either unless you're digging in the tree. what this beetle likes to do is eat right along this area and the inner cambium. And if there's enough burrows and enough larvae eating around the base of the tree, they'll essentially girdle the tree. And that's where they do their damage, where the other one burrows all the way through the tree, and the invasive shot-hole borer will burrow all the way through the tree and turn the entire trunk into sawdust. This one just eats this little layer and girdles it. These really like drought-stressed trees, or at least drought-stressed trees die quicker when they are infested with gold-spotted oak borer. Here you can see galleries. This is a bark piece that has been chipped off, and you can see all the galleries with the frass in here. But the number one, they like coast live oak and black oak, agrifolia and Kelloggi. That's their favorite, their preferred. Canyon live oak and Engelmann oak, they will attack. They don't really like scrub oak because they like big, thick trunks. So the thinner trunk, scrubby kinds, they don't go for as well, but those also aren't used in landscape as much. And the coast live oaks that you get from a nursery, even the big box ones, the trunks are pretty small and they're not likely to be infested anytime soon. So here's the distribution of these. Cal fire, because this kills big trees that are a fire risk, Cal fire is very involved with the mapping of the distribution of these. So you can see Scanso, El Cajon, Ramona, Julian is where most of them are. A San Diego resident brought a bunch of firewood up to his cabin in Idlewild. That's what this is. They got that one under control pretty quickly because of all the research that had been done in San Diego. They kind of knew what to look for and how to control it, so they did all right. But in San Diego, Descanso is ground zero, and it's just killing everything now. And you see here the smaller trees, under 10 inches, fairly low mortality, fairly low infestation rate. Once you get up to the big trees, 20 and 30, where the insect is established, getting almost half the trees dead. Pretty much all of them infested, half of them dead. And you get areas like this, 200-year-old trees just all wiped out within a couple of years with the combination of the drought and the beetle. This is what you would how you'd be able to spot it from a distance. And this is the main giveaway. You can spot it from driving down the highway. You'll see these bald patches in the tree. And this is where a beetle got in there, ate through this little bit of cambium, and whatever portion of the tree received its nutrients from right in here ends up getting choked off and dies. So you'll see a hole like this, a beetle exit hole with sap coming out. So if there's enough soil moisture and it's a fresh wound, there will be sap coming out. You will also see woodpecker damage where the woodpeckers are digging through the grubs. On older trees, or older wounds, let's see, I don't know if you can see all these little red dots. All these red dots are painted on, but they are to mark exit holes as part of a study, so we knew how many were coming through each year. But it's just going to be a little hole, and we have cards that I didn't bring with me today, a little business card size with a punched exit hole in them that you can match up for size. And we have, I don't know, these are available at various other seminars you might go to, or UC Extension hands them out. So it's just this little tiny D-shaped hole is how they exit. And on an older one, you won't see any sap around it, but that'll show you how many, it'll show you that the pest is present. So, yes?
When you said the exit holes were painted red, do you know how many are coming out in a year?
Yeah, we went one year, painted every hole red, came back the next year, so we knew that any hole that was in there was from this year's reproduction.
Okay. My question actually is, are the borers I mean, are they likely to attack a tree in a particular part, like lower trunk, mid trunk, or up in the crown or something?
This beetle likes big, thick trunks. So you're going to find it from the ground up to 8, 10, 12 feet. That's where most of it is. The adults feed on foliage up in the canopy, but that's not really doing any damage. It's where they will land is on the big branches. And the big, thick trunk is where the majority of the population is breeding. And if you want to control it, those are the trees you look for, and those are the branches that you would spray with pesticides if you go that route. All right, so integrated pest management, if you want to control the pest or just work on the health of the trees in the area, these are the traps we set out, or you might see those traps in a Forest Service area. They're not for control, it's just for monitoring, and in reality you don't need them. You can tell by looking at the canopy of the tree, looking at the trunk of the tree, the traps are of minimal use. Pesticide applications have been very, very useful in limited situations. If you have like specimen trees in a park or in an area in a stand that you manage that you're able to do pesticide applications in, big trees that are serving as population reservoirs and infesting all the other smaller trees around them, those can be sprayed, but trying to spray the national forest, it's not viable. But parks, our county parks have had excellent luck spraying the trees once a year, maybe twice a year, timed with the bug's emergence and flight patterns. And it's been really good. And you just spray the trunk. You don't have to spray the whole tree, so you're not wiping out the whole ecosystem that's living within the tree, just the trunk, and that ends up killing the adult pests, the adult beetles that land on it to lay eggs, and also the young as they emerge, because they both happen about the same time. So when it works, if you're able to, it's excellent. And if you want to learn about that, arborist seminars, we give very lengthy, detailed talks about the pest control aspect, but this probably don't have enough time for that. Cutting down the trees. If you have a big tree that's serving as a population reservoir, or it's too far gone, it's a big tree, already 150, 200 years old, you can't really save it. Cut it down, handle the wood properly, and restoration. If you have an area that has trees dying, just remember that you have to grow new trees. Don't just try to save the old trees. Recruitment is always important. If you are removing trees in your parks, your rights of way, anything, grinding it to less than 3 inches and leaving the grindings on site is ideal, but it's not always feasible if you don't have a tub grinder. Normal tow-behind wood chippers can't handle oak trees. So another option is bark removal, and it's kind of time consuming, but probably cheaper than buying a tub grinder, is sawing the bark off. The bark will go through a regular wood chipper and leaving the rest of the wood. You do whatever you want with the rest of the wood, because once the bark is gone, it's not a threat anymore. Seasoning, just leaving the wood on site. The bugs will emerge from that, but if your area is already infested, you're not furthering the damage, so you can leave the trees there for a couple of years, let it run its course until it's no longer a threat of transporting the pest around, and then remove it. Tarping doesn't kill the bug. The bugs love the heat, so you put it in there, make a nice oven, and they're all going to come out. They're going to be really happy, and they can probably chew through the tarp. Or if you're using cheap tarp material that's going to fall apart in the sun, that you're not really going to contain the spread, but we just put it up there to show that people do it, but it doesn't really have a lot of effect. The main thing is don't move the wood off site. And just to show you what's in the bark, this little tiny bit of bark here, not very much, threw it in a barrel, sealed it up, put this trap on the lid. This little tiny bit of bark, after a month, produced 168 beetles. So when you think of just moving, mean, drop a tree on the side of the woods, someone comes along with a pickup truck thinking they're going to sell a load of firewood, you're talking 1,000 beetles at that point that they're going to bring to their neighborhood and sell to their neighbors. So be very cognizant of what you're doing with the trees that you're dropping. Now, South American palm weevil. This is a really new one. It's attacking Canary Island date palms it's been in Mexico and in Tijuana for 5-6 years. A couple years ago, it showed up in the Sweetwater River Valley, and it's killing a number of Phoenix canariensis down there. It's a huge beetle. It's almost the size of your palm. This grub doesn't look like much here, but that's bigger than your thumb. It's big. It's nasty, and the adults are very strong flyers. They'll go down into the apical meristem crown, and they'll start eating away at the newly forming fronds. So as the fronds start opening up, what they look like is something that's been chewed on. This is all older growth because where they're actually feeding is just at the very tip, the soft green tips. And I did not include any other pictures beyond this, but you'll notice that after a couple of years, the whole crown will die, and if it's in a parking lot or next to your business, next to a house, the whole crown, 4,000 pounds, fall over, cause a lot of damage. So you really need to be cognizant of trees that start looking like that close to buildings. Now, where we're finding most of them on this side of the border is in riverbeds, in canyons, where you have clusters of feral Phoenix canariensis. And those, I mean, it's kind of tough to manage those. Who manages riverbeds? Homeless people like to live under them. It's kind of tough, but that's where the populations are right now, and where they're really being amplified. And the adults are strong flyers, but they don't like to. If there's another Phoenix canariensis nearby, or they'll just stay in the same one they're in, they'll do that. So the likelihood of one landscape tree off on its own being attacked is minimal, but it's not impossible. And we're very concerned about this attacking Southern California's valuable date crop industry. This could very easily jump onto Phoenix dactyliferas and start going after those. We haven't seen it here yet, but it's not out of the question. It hasn't been on any of the fan palms, Washingtonias, anything like that. But it's something to look out for. There are pesticide options, but can you really spray in a riverbed? That's kind of tough. I know City of San Diego has been helicopter logging some of these out when they're problems. That's it, and don't move firewood or just leave it on site. All right, all of this information, I just gave a super brief crash course. Identification, other concerns, control. These are all very well laid out on the UC websites. UC ANR, UC Riverside have all done a ton of research and have very accurate, up-to-date maps. So you can access any of those, easy to Google, UC Riverside, and the pest name. It has more information than you can handle. That's the best way to learn more about those, and that's all I have for right now. Any questions?
How
Yes?
big is the South American palm beetle? Did you say it's the size of our?
Yeah, it's in your palm. So the adult probably
The weed?
this big. Thumb size easily, bigger than thumb size. Yeah. Oh, they're raised for food. The larvae, they grow in palm plantations and purposely infest the crowns of the palms on the low-growing ones and harvest them, fry them up. Yes.
Hopefully those won't be for our group. Now you're all hungry, right?
So you mentioned 3 inches minus for the chipping the wood,
Correct.
the gold spotted
Mhm.
Is there a recommendation for the shot hole for chipping?
If you can get smaller, then get smaller. Obviously, it's a smaller beetle that doesn't need as much wood to live. because it's feeding on its own fungus that it brings in. It's not feeding on the nutrients that the plants are carrying. So you got to do more work on those, but it's so new, I don't really know how much. I mean, if you have whatever grinder you have, but 3-inch minus probably work, but if you have less, go for it.